Hi, I am Patrick, and this is Brian. Together we are Just Got Played, or in this case, I just got plowed. We just got done playing a game called Illimat here at the Cloak and Blaster. Join us for the review of Illimat. Brian Fiore.
Yes.
Plant some seeds of knowledge in our brain about Illimat.
I'll see if I can grow it on you. Sure. Illimat is a 2 to 4 player game, and the theme is kind of like a planting, harvesting, seasonal kind of farming type game, but old school, like maybe in the early days from way back. And it takes about 30, I think it takes about, once you have it all set up and you kind of got the rules down and everything, about 30 minutes to play at hand.
That's fair.
Generally, the game could be played with just a single hand, which is where all the cards are dealt out, all the players play all the cards from their hand, and then you see who just has the highest point total at the end. Or you could play like an extended game, which lasts multiple hands, and then you are either playing to a predetermined amount of points, which is either 12 or 17. Kind of like in some games where you're playing up to like Rummy 500 or something, it's like a 500 score. So in this case, it would be 12 or 17, or if you want the quicker game, it would just be the one round whoever has the highest number of points. In Illimat, the board is this cool like cloth handkerchief kind of thing, and it has 4 different fields that are kind of laid out. Each player is dealt out essentially 4 cards, except for the player immediately to the left who has 3 cards, and you can look at your hand. Basically, during each turn, you're going to play one of your cards to one of the 4 fields on the board. And there's a number of actions you can do when you're playing your card. And in the fields, there's also 3 cards that are dealt and they're face up in the beginning of the setup of the game. In addition to that, there's what we call the Illimat, which is kind of like a seasonal calendar, and I'll get into a little bit more of that. But it can rotate, and that's in the center of the board. And on top of the Illimat are some Ocus tokens, if I'm pronouncing that right. There's like 1 per player there, which are going to act as extra points. Anytime you clear one of the fields, you're going to take one of those Ocus tokens. Anytime you take a token, you're going to deal 3 new cards to the field. And then there's also luminaries. These are kind of like tarot cards, which each of them have a special ability. So anytime the field is cleared, they're going to reveal, and that's going to trigger a special ability or game-changing effect. And then also the second time that field is cleared, that card is going to be picked up, and it's going to be worth a point at the end of the game. And that's also going to trigger 3 new cards to also be dealt out the second time the field is cleared. So getting back to each player's turn, they're going to play 1 card from their hand. There's a number of actions you can do when you're playing that card. You can either play that card in a harvest fashion. So when you're harvesting, you are going to, let's say, play a 6. And you're going to play it to this field here in front of me. And any other 6s that are in there, I could take, along with the 6 that I just played. And then those would be collected to tally up points at the end. In addition to taking 6s, any cards that can combine to add up to a value of 6, I'm also going to be able to take. So if there's a 2 and a 4, I would take those. If there's a 5 and a 1, I would take those. Any 6s, I would just take. And so you're going to try to collect as many cards as possible. And then the other type of action you can play a card is you can sow. So sowing is basically you're just discarding a card from your hand to kind of build up the field for later on. So other players can mess with it, take that card, stockpile it, or harvest it later on, and so can you if it gets all the way back around. And then the final action you can do is you can stockpile. Now stockpiling has 2 different types of effects that you can make happen in a field. When you stockpile, you're basically going to combine 2 cards of a match, like the 1 card from your hand with a matching value. So if I was going to play a 6 and there's another 6, those 2 can combine, and those 6s become locked together. So in the future, other players can play other 6s on there, but they can't be separated. The other type of thing that you can do in a stockpile is you can create a new value. So you're adding 2 different cards together to create a new value. So if I played my 6 and a 2, I could make an 8. And those cards kind of become locked together as an 8. But in either case, whenever I'm stockpiling, I have to have a card in my hand that matches the value of either the 6s that I'm making or the 8 if I'm creating a new value. So those are the 3 types of actions whenever you're playing a card that you can do. At the end, if you happen to clear the field, then you're going to trigger like collecting that, either revealing the luminary or collecting the luminary and collecting an Ocus token, and new cards are going to come out. The other caveat in the game is if you play one of the face cards or the court cards, that's going to rotate that Illimat, and there are the seasons so to match. So if I play like the Queen of Frost, it's going to rotate the Frost or the Winter over to match where I played the Queen of Frost. And what that's going to do is each one of the seasons actually has a game effect. So if winter is facing a field, you can no longer harvest from there. If it's summer, Summer's good. Anything goes during the summertime. So you can do all your actions there, but autumn doesn't allow you to sow, and spring doesn't allow you to stockpile. So that can be rotated like the entire time. Basically, once all the cards are dealt and all the players have played all of their hands, you tally up your score. Whoever has the most cards gets 4 points. Whoever has the most summer cards is going to get 2 points. Whoever has an Ocus token gets 1 point, and whoever has a Luminary card gets 1 point. And whoever has the Frost cards are bad, and those are worth that's worth negative 2 points.
Only if you have the most Frost cards.
Only if you have the most Frost
or
cards.
the most summer cards.
Right. Oh, yeah. They're kind of like a majority. Whoever's got. But then the Luminary sometimes has special abilities, like the River card kind of turns all of the Frosts into positive points. If you happen to have the most, then you're going to get bonus points instead.
Yeah.
So there's some game-changing stuff like that. With that said, Patrick, what would you say is your favorite thing about Illimat?
It's got to be the very design of the game. It is extraordinarily deep with very simple components. I mean, literally, it's pretty much a deck of 52 cards plus a few tarot cards. So they kind of built this whole story around, this is an ancient game that's been around for a long, long time, and it just really, it took a lot of thought and a lot of process to make a game that works this well with such a really limited skew of components, in my opinion. And if there's one thing that you love the most about the game, it is...
My favorite thing about the game is the Illimat, which is the actual piece in the center of the board that rotates. It's just kind of like a neat calendar mechanic. Adds an extra level of strategy to the game because then you want to hold back your face cards. So you can end up turning that calendar around to bring the hot summer wherever you want so that you can harvest everything that you want, or you can, I like being able to control the seasons, being able to control just about anything really, but especially the board. So, but what would you say is the thing that you like least about Illimat?
It's a little mathy, so if you're not a person that enjoys doing a lot of adding and trying to make a lot of guesstimates about the other cards that the other player has, and if you're not really on top of your game, you get lost really, really quick if you're not adding everything properly and getting that through your head. On the contrary to that, there are people that love that, and those people are going to love this game. If you're a person that loves kind of figuring things out like to the finest minute detail and really good with numbers, you're going to rock at this game. And if there's one thing that you had to choose that you like the least?
The thing that I liked the least was in the rules, just the explanation of the stockpiling mechanic. I seem to get confused and hung up on that a couple of times about how you're locking the cards together because it contains two different options. You can either build like a 6 on a 6 or like-kind values together, or you can create a new value. But in either case, you still have to have a card in your hand that you can show the other players like, hey, I can take this in the future with I can actually harvest that in the future. So if you just kind of remember that, or if you learn the game, not from reading the rules, but from just playing it from someone who already knows, then that's not really an issue, I think.
I think you're right. I think once you know you get into a couple rounds of this game, it becomes very familiar, although initially it's not intuitive. How's that? Does that sound weird? Did that come out right?
I think it came out right. So.
Did you think it came out right?
I think so. So Illimat is actually currently on Kickstarter, so make sure you jump over there and reap your copy from the Kickstarter.
I'm Patrick, this is Brian. We are at the Cloak and Blaster, and we just got done playing Illimat. Thank you very much for watching.
And you got plowed, didn't you?
I did. I did not. I had a tough row to hoe.
Yeah.
And I really got planted in the ground on this one.
Yeah. It was sort of like backbreaking, but bent over and never mind.
Bend over.
No, I said bent over. Backbreaking work. Farming is tough.
Oh, bent over, not bend over. Good.
Did you know that the word
no.
the F word actually is a farming term?
I know. I don't want to know the end of this.
No.
Yeah.
It's where you take your finger and you put it into the soil.
Whoa! There's kids going to be watching this.
It's dirty. I admit it's dirty. You're taking your finger and you're putting it into the soil so that you can plant seeds, and that's without even getting profane.
Soil a euphemism?